to the Football Tribe UG channel. Robert Kesakos is your usual suspect. Welcome back to yet another live broadcast on your favorite football updates channel. It's a pleasure to be back on this beautiful Tuesday morning at 28 minutes past the hour of 9 a.m. coming to you live from Kampala, Uganda. For those of you that managed to join us every single day for our respective broadcasts, we do appreciate you a great deal. This morning, we'll be discussing many topics, including Manchester United's Benjamin Sesko, who has been ruled out for a couple of weeks through injury for that knee injury he suffered during their 2-2 draw against Tottenham Hotspur. We'll be talking about the wrap-up of the international break, the last of its kind this year. And then, obviously, we will get to discuss the Under-17 World Cup that gets underway today in as far as the round of 16 is concerned. So plenty for us to discuss this beautiful morning. And we will see. I can't, foresee how long this broadcast will last. But at least by the time we wrap it up, we should have been able to go through all those things. For those of you that did engage us last night for our broadcast, we say thank you so much for having been part of that conversation. We really appreciate you for the time you did dedicate to be with us. So that love and support is not taken for granted. Thank you so much for always sparing the time to be with us every single morning, every single evening. People like Reddy, who was asking me about cricket, talking about one of the best cricketers there is in Indian history and cricket history, in Virati, and things like that. So we do appreciate you, even though you're not a football enthusiast. To all our new subscribers, we say welcome to the community. I can see we're growing at 2,531. The numbers look good there. But like I told you guys, the ultimate objective for now is improving on our watch time. Our watch time is what we need to improve to raise to accumulate the 4,000 hours of watch time in a space of a year so that we can monetize this channel. That's the objective. I won't hide it to you. That's it. It is what it is. So anything that you do to support this channel, watching our content is very welcome, really. So thank you so much for those of you that are dedicating the time. For those of you that do watch our, our broadcasts long after they've ended, we still say thank you so much for always endeavoring to take the time. Thank you so much, Team India, for your kindness, for your love and support. Your continued love and support doesn't go unnoticed. Boss Royal, LFC, Pedri, and every single one of you that is a regular. Peter Parker, under the new name Danny and something like that. So we do appreciate everything that you do for us in as far as this channel is concerned. Anyways, then we will also talk about Antoine Semenyo because where do we even start? Because Antoine Semenyo has also come to light because there's information regarding his contract at AFC Bournemouth. I think let's start with Antoine Semenyo. Well, what we are learning from about Antoine Semenyo is that he has a £65 million release clause in his contract. Remember, over the course of the summer, he was subject to transfer speculation being linked with a potential move to all sorts of clubs, including the likes of Arsenal, including the likes of Tottenham Hotspur, and predominantly Manchester United, who were being reported to be in need of his services. And fortunately or unfortunately, he was not able to make the move. So it's fortunate for Bournemouth. It is unfortunate for those that were trying to pursue his signature that they were unable to get it during the course of the summer. So what we are learning today is that he has a £65 million release contract. Now, during the course of the summer, most of the speculation, most of the information we are getting was that Bournemouth were not willing to budge on their £75 million fee request for the 25-year-old Ghanaian international. Of course, he was born in the UK, but his dad is Ghanaian, so that's where he draws the roots of being a Ghanaian, and he does represent the Black Stars of Ghana. So Now, during the course of the summer, when he did not get that move, of course, we know that Bournemouth lost out on so many players. They had to let go of 3 defenders in Milos Kakes, who left for Liverpool, Ilya Zabanyi, who joined PSG, and then Dean Howson, who joined Real Madrid. I think they worked up about 150 million pounds out of those 3 player sales. Now, they could not keep a hold of Kepa Arrizabalaga, who ended up at Arsenal because he had been there on loan. They had hoped to make his loan move permanent, but they were unable to. Instead, they resorted to going to Chelsea again, where they had gotten Kepa from on loan to get George Petrovic, who is now their #1 goalkeeper in a deal believed to be worth about 25 million pounds. So when it came to their forward players like Antoine Semenyo was one of the hotcakes. There was speculation regarding Justin Kluivert. That's the son to Patrick Kluivert. Now, the speculation around Justin Kluivert was coming from Germany, that Bayer Leverkusen were interested in his services as a possible replacement for Florian Wirtz, who had left the club to join Liverpool. So you had that. Now, they ended up all staying. However, we know that Antoine Semenyo went on to put pen to paper on a new 5-year contract to stay at the Vitality Stadium. So that was, I think, on the 1st of July. We know that the transfer window had formally opened just 2 weeks earlier, in I think around the 16th of June. Notwithstanding the earlier 10 days between, I think, 1st to 10th June, that was to permit particularly clubs that were going to participate in the FIFA Club World Cup to sign some players. Of course, even other clubs were allowed to use the same window, but the official mark for the summer transfer window was on the 16th of June. So 2 weeks, about a fortnight later, he put pen to paper on a 5-year contract. Now, according to BBC Sport, that 5-year contract has a release clause that is valid in January 2026, but only for a period of 2 weeks. And the reason as why there's that limitation, that whoever wants to sign him this January has to pay 65 million pounds within the first 2 weeks of January, is to permit Bournemouth to find a potent replacement should it be that the Ghanaian gets a move. And I mean, we know that the January transfer window is oftentimes not the busiest transfer windows in terms of major deals, but apologies there on the internet glitch. Unfortunately, these things tend to happen. Unfortunately, these things tend to happen. Apologies on that. I was saying that Liverpool was one of the teams that were being linked with a potential move for Antoine Semenyo as a potential replacement for Luis Diaz, who will now left to join Bayern Munich. So that's for the Colombian international. Now, like I was saying, that oftentimes the January transfer window isn't the busiest of transfer windows. Nonetheless, it goes without saying that in recent times we've seen some major deals really happen in the January transfer window, and particularly, might I remind you, Manchester City in January 2025 went and signed as many as 4 key players. They signed Kushanov, they signed Omar Mamouche from Eintracht Frankfurt. They signed Nico Gonzalez from FC Porto. That's the Spanish midfielder. They also signed Victor Reis, the 19-year-old, at least then, 19-year-old Brazilian defender. So that speaks to show that that whereas the January transfer window is not oftentimes laden with plenty of activity in comparison to its counterpart in the summer, there tends to be some serious business that gets done. We know that historically, Patrice Evra, I think, was signed in January. Some influential players have been signed in January. Remember Fernando Torres, I think, going from Liverpool to Chelsea. That deal happened in January. So you remember Arsenal signing Leandro Trossard. I think that deal happened possibly in January. I stand to be corrected, but around, I'm hoping that was the period anyways. So, I mean, things tend to happen in January, and what Bournemouth are simply saying is that if anybody is interested in signing Antoine Semenyo, you're going to have to rack up the 65 million pounds, but within the first 2 weeks, so that you give us room to then go and find a replacement. He did not have it easy, going through his career, because as a youngster, he was rejected by Arsenal, he was rejected by Tottenham Hotspur, he was rejected by Millwall, and it was not pretty. It was not pretty, and he ended up joining the SGS college in Bristol, where they do have a football program that is run by former Leeds and Forest Green Rovers manager Davy Hockaday. So it's from there that he started getting his foot back. Ended up going on a couple of loans there at Bath, at Newport, and Sunderland before breaking through. And when he broke through in the 2020-2021 season, that's when he got his major breakthrough. He joined Bournemouth in January 2023 in a deal worth about £10 million from Bristol, and he's never been the same player. He's gone on to improve season in, season out. Last season, he managed double figures in as far as his goal contribution was concerned for Bournemouth. He scored 11 goals in the Premier League, and across all competitions, he scored 13 goals, meaning only 2 goals came from across the other competitions. That's the EFL Cup and possibly the FA Cup. Then this season alone, he's been one of the most influential players that you could look to in the Premier League, having already scored 6 goals and provided 3 assists in the opening 11 games of the season for Andoni Iraola's side. So that in itself is remarkable. You cannot take it for granted. So I thought we should get off, the things with that huge news, because Antoine Semenyo, I think he's proven himself at that kind of level that he's a very good goal scorer given the opportunity. He's a very good runner. He has the pace. He has the dribbling skills. He has everything right for his game. He has a mix of that physique. You remember, he went on to score a brace on the opening day against Liverpool in that 4-2 loss to Liverpool on Friday, the 15th August 2025, when the Premier League did return. So he's a very, very capable guy. If his suitors believe he is worth the juice and he is worth the value that is being slapped on him, then definitely they should be going out and leveraging on the January transfer window to further bolster their squads. We know for a fact that Arsenal remain in the market, or at least by word, verbatimly, that they remain in the market, keeping an eye out for a left winger. Could Antoine Semenyo be the answer, or are they still hell-bent on trying to get Rodrigo Goes out of Real Madrid, or have their stance shifted to try and pursue a deal for Rafael Leao? We do not know. Man United, having signed Matheus Cunha and Brani Mbeumo, I do not know whether they will still be in the market for another winger, but we can never say never. It's Manchester United, they're a big club, they do have the financial resources, so I wouldn't be too surprised if they were to invest that. Then we know Liverpool are a bit lightweight on that left wing, because they have Cody Gakpo, and without Cody Gakpo, or if it is not Cody Gakpo, they've tried their Florian Wirtz. Ekitike has played there as well, but yeah, they could, given that they let go of Luis Diaz and the unfortunate demise of Diogo Jota during the course of the summer, again, I wouldn't be too surprised if they too made the move. When it comes to Tottenham Hotspurs, could he go and take that number off of Brennan Johnson? Tottenham Hotspurs in pursuit of a winger, because we know they managed to get Mohamed Kudus. We know that they tried to get Morgan Gibbs-White but failed at that. But we know that Morgan Gibbs-White plays predominantly as a 10 in that role, or in that pocket where James Maddison, who is currently out injured, also feels. So we'll have to wait and see. Then the other team that we cannot rule out is Chelsea, because Chelsea, one, they do have the money. Two, they sign whoever they please. So for Chelsea, any time is a time to do business. So we cannot rule them out either. So we'll have to wait and see. Man City, I do not think they will be interested, given that they have Savinho, given that they have Jeremy Doku, all players that occupy the same, slot on the pitch. So we'll have to wait and see who will take the advantage. Could Aston Villa come in for him given their recent money problems? I'm not too enthusiastic, or I'm not too hopeful that that could be the case. Anyways, let's move away from that and look at the wrap-up of the international break. Yesterday, we did have some games in the World Cup qualifiers in as far as Europe is concerned, with Germany beating up against Slovakia by 6-0. Nick Voltmada, Sagi Nabre, a brace from Leroy Sané, Baku, and Odrago were the goal scorers for Germany. Germany, remember, are under the charges of Julian Nagelsmann, that's their manager, while Francesco Calzona is the manager for the Slovakia team. So German, they too advanced or qualified straight for the World Cup 2026 that will be played in the United States of America, Canada, and Mexico. Anyways, so Germany topped the group, that's Group A, with 15 points, having managed 5 wins out of 6 and 1 loss to their name. Slovakia came second, ahead of Northern Ireland and Luxembourg in that group. So then meanwhile, on the same day, Northern Ireland beat up against Luxembourg by 1-0. In Group G, Malta lost to Poland by 3-2, while Netherlands did beat up against Lithuania by 4-0. Tijan Reinders, Cody Gakpo from the penalty spot, Xavi Simons and Daniel Malin were the goal scorers there for that Dutch team. That also implies that Netherlands did qualify straight for the World Cup. Remember, the Dutch are under the charges of former Barcelona manager and ex-Everton gaffer in Ronald Koeman. So he is the man in charge of that dugout in as far as the Dutch national team is concerned. They too managed to complete the qualifiers without losing a single game, having managed 6 victories and 2 draws out of 8 games played. Now, for those of you that are wondering, different teams have a different number of teams. Some groups have 4 teams, other groups have 5 teams. So please bear that in mind on that difference. So then also in Group L, Czech Republic beat up against Gibraltar by 6-0, while Montenegro lost to Croatia by 3-2. Remember, Montenegro led that game by 2-0 at some point. But Croatia, through Ivan Perisic, through Jakic and Vlasic, were the goal scorers there to ensure that Croatia were not embarrassed. We're talking about the 2018 losing finalists of the World Cup who lost to France in that final. Meanwhile, so Croatia, that means Croatia have also qualified directly for the World Cup, having garnered 22 points in 7 victories with 1 draw in 8 games played in that group. So that one is also wrapped up. Then there was a whole host of international friendlies, and today those international friendlies do continue. Our own Uganda Cranes will be up against Morocco in Morocco, so that game is going to happen. Madagascar beat up against Equatorial Guinea by 2-0. Chad and Mozambique, that ended in a 2-all draw, while the game between Egypt and Algeria was cancelled, as was the friendly with Kenya and Comoros. As same applied to Argentina and Australia. Those were international friendlies. Comoros beat up against Namibia by 4-0, while Egypt and Cape Verde, shared the spoils in a 1-all draw, and then Egypt won it on penalties. Zimbabwe beat up against Qatar by 2-1, while Finland beat up against Andorra by 4-0 in those some of those international friendlies that were played. Somalia beat up against Bahrain by 2-1. Now, the action does continue tomorrow the action does continue today in as far as wrapping up the international break is concerned. Kosovo are up against Switzerland from Group B. Sweden will be up against Slovenia. In Group C, Belarus will be up against Greece, while Denmark have a date with Scotland. In Group E, Bulgaria are up against Georgia, while Spain are looking to also wrap up their group with all victories without conceding a single goal, because as we speak, they've played 5 games, they've won all without conceding a single goal, really scoring at least 19 goals. Turkey are in second place with 12 points. So looks like the two who want it the most will be up against each other. I think Turkey got beat in the first leg. Expect to see players like Unai Simon, Pedro Porro, Pau Kubasi, Emerick Laporte, Marc Cucurella in that, Luis de la Fuente's aside for the backline of Spain. Expect to see Martin Zubimendi and Mikel Merino in that midfield alongside Fabian Ruiz. Expect to see the likes of Ferran Torres, Mikel Oyarzabal, and Alex Pena. With all that talent, sometimes I get to wonder why Spain had to mourn about the absence of Lamine Yamal. So do expect that. On the side of Turkey, expect some notable figures like Hakan Çalhanoğlu, Adagula from Real Madrid, Kenan Yildiz from Juventus. So those are some of the key figures that you ought to look out for in as far as Turkey are concerned. Those games will be kicking off at 10:45 p.m. Across board. And then in Group H, you'll have Austria up against Bosnia-Herzegovina, while Romania will be up against San Marino in that group. So do not miss out on a single thing in as far as that action is concerned. Austria are leading that group with 18 points so far. So take in of that. Then in Group J, Belgium will be up against Liechtenstein. Wales will take on North Macedonia, while the other game will be in the World Cup qualifiers from Asia. It will be Iraq up against UAE or the United Arab Emirates. So that's in as far as World Cup qualifiers go. Then you have games in the Asian 2027 qualification, games. So we won't dwell on that. Then quickly, let's go to the World Cup Under-17, because that also gets underway today at the round of 16. Like I told you last night, for those of you that managed to catch last night's podcast, the Uganda Cups or Uganda will be up against Burkina Faso. Italy take on Uzbekistan. All those games do kick off at 3:30 p.m. Mexico will be up against Portugal at 4 p.m., while at 4:30 p.m. Brazil will take on France. And at 5:45 p.m., Switzerland will take on Ireland, while at 6:15 p.m., North Korea will be up against Japan. And then at 45 minutes past 6 p.m. or 6:45, Austria will be up against England, while Morocco will take on Mali. So that means we do guarantee, as Africa, as a continent, we do guarantee ourselves 2 places, at least in the quarterfinals, by the virtue of the fact that Uganda are up against Burkina Faso and Morocco are up against Mali. Now, do pray for me, because I'll be rooting for our very own Uganda, who will be without the likes of James Bogele, our own talisman, who received a yellow card in the previous victory against Senegal that saw us advance to the round of 16 from the round of 32. Now, and I hope YB, Idrissa YB, our goalkeeper, will again be in top form to make sure that we do advance to the quarterfinals. Burkina Faso knocked out Germany, beating them by 0-0, while Uganda, like I've told you, knocked out Senegal, beating them by 0-0 to get to the stage. So do not miss out on that action. For our counterparts from Morocco and Mali, we wish you the best of luck in your own endeavors. England, Austria, we wish you the very best. Mexico, Portugal, same applies. Brazil, France, we wish you the very best. The chocolate addicts of Switzerland and Ireland, we wish you the very best. And so are the Ohio Gozaimasu speakers of Japan up against North Korea. We wish you the very best. The spaghetti kings, the pasta kings of Italy, we wish you the very best against Uzbekistan. So that's the wrap of the fixtures as far as the World Cup Under-17 round of 16 are concerned. Then quickly, let's drift away from that and also look at the injury for Benjamin Sesko. Now, Manchester United striker Benjamin Sesko has been ruled out for a period of a month following that knee injury that he did sustain in their 2-2 draw against Tottenham Hotspurs. He looked touched when he suffered that injury. It's not like he was involved in a physical duel that saw him, suffer the injury, but he walked off. And like I said, at the time when we discussed this, the most positive thing to take away from that incident is that he was able to walk by himself and he walked down straight the tunnel. So whereas there have been earlier big fears that it could be a very, very serious long-term knee injury, it's not to be the case. Also, subsequent days after that, Man United came out to clarify or to say that they were not too worried about the extent or the severity of his injury. Now, according to Sky Sports Premier League, they say Benjamin Sesko has avoided a major injury and is expected to be out for a month at most. Sky Sports understand. So looks like the Slovenian, striker will be out for only a period of about a month. Now, that in itself should come as great relief for Man United fans. One, that they get to avoid a very long-term injury for a player that is still trying to literally acclimatize himself to the Premier League environment. Apologies on that. But then also the upside to that, or the downside, is that this kind of run sort of hampers on his acclimatization. Every time a player is trying to fit into a new environment, he's trying to adapt to a new environment, injuries do not help, because then that kills whatever little momentum you are trying to build for yourself. So it's very, very unfortunate, but it is what it is. Will Manchester United miss him? I do not think they will miss him one bit. He's not the most influential player. He's not one of the most influential players that they do have in that squad, at least not by the performances he's delivered before. He scored a couple of goals, but yeah, not sufficient to say that he will be really, really missed. I think the only player that United look over their shoulder about missing presently are the likes of Brandon Mbeumo, maybe Bruno Fernandes, Casemiro, Matthias De Ligt in that defense, maybe Sané Lomans. He's sort of positioned himself as a standout performer in that goal. So yeah, that's basically it. Those are some of the names that I could look onto to say that they will be missed. So that's it with Man United's Benjamin Sesko. Then we have also learned that referee Michael Oliver will take charge of Sunday's North London derby game between Arsenal and Tottenham Hotspurs. It will be the first Arsenal game that he has taken charge of since he incorrectly sent off Mars Lewis Kelly in the game at Wolves back in January. So looks like they had taken him out of the firing line in as far as Arsenal and Arsenal fans are concerned. But he was bound to return soon or rather than later. My views about Michael Oliver, one that are very unapologetic, is that on a couple of occasions, he's made what would pass for suspicious decisions. He was in charge as VAR official for that game between Manchester City and Liverpool. We remember what happened. Liverpool had a goal cancelled out or ruled out, which had been an equalizer from Virgil van Dijk before, Man City got their second in that game. We know that Manchester City were awarded a penalty that subsequent to which was awarded after a VAR review, whereas many of us did not think there was a clear and obvious error from the referee that was in charge. So we will have to wait and see how things go in that regard. We'll have to wait and see how things go. We'll have to wait and see how things go in that regard. But I do not want to say we will give him the benefit of doubt. I think we will have to wait and see what he delivers in the form of a referee's performance. Sometimes referees behave like a dead clock. That even a dead clock is correct at least twice a day. So if the clock's hands, that's a minute, and the hour hand died at 9 a.m. So every 9 a.m., and perhaps 9 p.m., they'll be correct. It will be correct in that moment. So that's where I would like to give him the benefit of that, So let's wait and see how things will go in that regard. Let's wait and see how things will go in that regard. In as far as Michael Oliver taking charge of that London derby. It's a huge game. I know Arsenal fans will be concerned. In fact, Welbeast on X said they have brought back Michael Oliver to referee a game involving Arsenal for the first time since last season when he sent off Miles Lewis Kelly against Wolves. Pidgemore, we are watching you. That's what he's saying. Of course, he wrongly sent off a player, and for me, that's where I have an issue with. That's where I have an issue with. Players and managers receive all forms of scrutiny and penalties and punishments when they say something bad about the referee, when they crowd the referee, they're booked, when they protest referees' decisions in show of frustration of what happens in moments in the game, they're possibly booked, possibly sent off. Same is applied to managers. We know that managers' tongues are tied, or their words are very restricted in regards to what they can say or what they can't say about referees. But when referees are in error, and for me, the contentious thing has always been one. If a manager is not allowed to defend their own team, even against officials, who then is better positioned to defend them, to defend their team? And I find that a monopoly of injustice, because it's like saying you're allowed to speak, you're not allowed to speak. Basically, that's what it is. And I'm not saying that referees will always deserve what they get, but oftentimes they do deserve it. Oftentimes they do deserve it. So if a referee or if referees are making bad decisions, we should be able to scrutinize them. Let managers give their honest opinion about the performance of referees. But because that internal Premier League criticism is almost not allowed to happen, that's why you end up with mediocre decisions or bad decisions week in, week out, because they are not under any form of pressure whatsoever, at least from what we are reading from the outside. They're not under any form of pressure whatsoever to get things right. They oftentimes make so many errors, do so many mistakes that cost teams points, and they simply get a slap on the wrist. They get a slap on the wrist, collect their paycheck like nothing happened, and get to go home and have a good night's sleep. And you remember, for those of you that are regulars on this channel, we have questioned before whether Premier League referees do review their own decisions, whether they go and review a match, whether they go and sit down and watch the game, minute by game, a game that they have officiated and say, I think I was wrong here, I was right there, I need to improve on that, next time I should be giving this kind of decision, and that kind of thing. You get. I really question whether they do that, because the repetitiveness within which they make the same errors, within which they make the same wrong decisions, some being a carbon copy of the other, or the lack of consistency in their own decisions, is really suspect. So you have a referee awarding a penalty in this game, and not awarding a penalty for a similar situation in the subsequent game or vice versa. And you're wondering to yourself, okay, are you self-correcting from your earlier decision in a different game? Or what are you trying to tell us? And then as the season goes on, you'll find multiple sorts of incidences where in one case it's given, on another it's not given. Particularly, remember last season with that rule with to do with time wasting or preventing a team from taking a quick restart to the game, whether it's a throw-in or a free kick, kicking the ball away or throwing it away. Arsenal got 2 red cards out of that. For Declan Rice against Brighton and Hove Albion, for Leandro Trossard away to Manchester City. You know? But no other team did that, got that. And it's not like they were not delaying restarts. Now, what seems to happen, or what seemed to happen there on going forward, was that players would get cautioned, be given a yellow card for doing that. But if they repeated the same thing in the course of the game, that second booking seemed never to come. You know? Did the Premier League realize that rule is bogus? Or did Pidgeotto realize that rule was bogus? Now, I understand the idea of preventing time wasting and, things like that. But we cannot police football like we're policing crime, because even in the criminal world, there's what's the term? I'm trying to look for it. There are those crimes for which you're not going to you're not going to be sent to prison. You either pay a fine, you do community service, and whatever the case. Actually, I was of the view that I'm of the view that when a player is caught suspect of delaying restarts and is given a fast booking, the next time they do it, let them go out of the game. For how long? Until that ball goes out again, or there's an incident that causes a restart. Yes, that's how it should be. Now, and it should be for a minimum of at least 2 minutes. Why? Because we could have a restart and simply their teammate boots the ball out so that their own player can get back on. So we can't have those sort of timeouts that puts their team to a disadvantage of playing with a man less. And we know that moment can be a defining moment in a game of football. You remember what happened against Man United and Tottenham Hotspurs when Benjamin Sesko gets injured. Unfortunately, they've already wrapped up their substitution, so they have to play the remainder of the game down to 10 men. It put them to a numerical disadvantage, which Tottenham capitalized on and got 2 goals. Unfortunately for Tottenham, they were unable to hold on to that lead because Matthias de Ligt scored from a corner kick to restore parity to make it 2-2. So there's so many things in the game that do happen for which the punishment shouldn't always be like, let's give him a red card, because these are petty things that players do. Let them go off the pitch. Again, I do not remember particularly who, but there was a time when there were suggestions about, again, injuries. That if a player commits a foul that causes injury or harm to another player, that it requires them to get medical attention. When the other player is going off after receiving that first treatment, let the player in causing that foul or bringing that injury or harm also follow them out. So that will remain with the balanced field. So as the other one walks back on, you also get to walk back on. So it's a bit of a level playing ground. Those are kinds of rules or regulations that I would imagine in future football that we would want to see, because we know that sometimes players have harmed others with intent. It's not always the case, but sometimes it has happened. So instead, if you try to put the other team to the disadvantage, let that disadvantage be both ways, at least in a half measure. Because of course injuring the other player is not the equivalent of you also getting injured, But if you go off with them, then you know what that means for your team. So, and things like that. So the thing about time wasting, that rule is still there. It wasn't changed, it wasn't repealed. No. but the implementation of it has sort of changed a bit. So today, if you delay a restart intentionally, you're going to get booked. It's that second booking that we never see coming. You know, the way we had seen it quite quickly and very suspicious in manner. Against Brighton, we also what happened. Declan Rice really gets kicked, gets booted, and is sent off. Leandro Trossard, Man City still have a player on the floor. That was Bernardo Silva. There's no Man City player trying to collect the ball when he kicks it away. And besides, it was momento in the case of, when you're swinging your arm, let's say you're swinging your arm to slap somebody. If you're already in motion and then somebody suddenly says stop, it may be very, very difficult for you to stop instantly. So what happened to Leandro Trossard was that he's already in motion to kick the ball. So when the whistle goes, perhaps you could argue he couldn't instantly or instantaneously stop himself. But whichever way you may want to dice the argument, and even if it had been really intentional, I did not think it was worthy of a red card. Caution the player in a verbal warning, or like I've said, we should be using timeouts in football. We should be really, really leveraging on timeouts. I think they would go a great deal to help us when it comes to getting rid of this of what turns out to be a bit of bad policy in the sport itself. Anyways, do let me know what your thoughts are on all those issues. Let me hear your thoughts. What you have to say about that. Otherwise, allow me to wrap it here and wish you a wonderful rest of the day. It's been a pleasure hearing from you all. For those of you that have managed to be part of this broadcast, those of you that liked, thank you so much. Thank you so much. I do not take your love and support for granted. It's been a wonderful being here with you for the last 42 minutes. Have a wonderful day, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye for now.